do it. So, my name is Stephen Nolan.
I'm Will Corcoran.
And we did an evaluation project on ski mountain demographics in North Carolina. To start it off, we'll tell you about our purpose statement. The purpose of this evaluation was to examine trends around and inside the snowboarding and skiing industry. Furthermore, we wanted to determine how these trends pertain to the three mountains in North Carolina and our local demographic. We had three evaluation objectives to start this off. The first one would be to identify the snowboard and skier population at each mountain. At Appalachian Ski, we found that it was about half and half, 12 snowboarders to about 13 skiers, whereas at Beech Mountain, we had 12 snowboarders to 4 skiers. A little bit of different population in there.
So our second evaluation objective was to identify the specific demographic that use each mountain. So was it mostly locals, people from North Carolina, from out of state, that sort of thing.
Third and final evaluation objective was to identify the trends related to the snowboarding and skiing industry over the past few years. We wanted to look at growth in one sport to another. Kind of noticed there are a little more skiers to snowboarders on the mountain, whereas in the past few years, snowboarders started to take over the skiing population. Also wanted to look a little at age and a little on skill level.
So why we chose this topic, Stephen and I are both avid snow sports participants. He snowboards, I ski. We really wanted to get a better understanding, both from a professional level and also a personal level about who really uses the mountains in North Carolina. Is it mostly local college kids like us, or is it, people coming up with their families, or, single people, or anything?
The first step in the evaluation process is going to be creating a survey. This was the first time Will and I actually had ever created a survey for an evaluation project, so there was a little bit of a learning curve in there. We used questions to get to the core of our evaluation objectives. We also had a few demographic questions in there to get a little idea of who's going to what mountain. Faced a few challenges in that. Like I said, our first time ever creating a survey. It took a little bit to learn how to use SurveyMonkey. Definitely should have done a pilot test. While we were surveying, we found a few of our questions didn't work, and we both found that once we transferred the data into Excel, it kind of didn't transfer the way we wanted it to, so we had a little harder time reading the data. So I'd like to kind of know how that transfers next time I'm making my own survey.
So we established some methods when we were going about this project, and first thing that we wanted to do was make sure that it was okay to go and collect data at each of the mountains. Appalachian Ski Mountain said yes, Beech Mountain Resort said yes, and Sugar Mountain said no. And not only did they say no, but they started throwing around words like trespassing and prosecution and fullest extent of the law if we showed up on their property and tried to conduct surveys anyway. So, some other problems that we had collecting data besides that were people would deny us when we came up to them. We had a pretty specific metric that we were using, and we would come up to people and ask them if they wanted to take our survey, and they were out there to ski or snowboard, and they said, I don't really want to right now. We also went on days that may not have been the best days. We were not able to get out there during the peak time in the ski season, so that definitely hindered us a little bit. Some other methods that we used face-to-face communication with participants. So we approached people and asked them if they would like to participate in our study. We handed out surveys 1 or 2 at a time to the participants, and we selected participants using systematic random sampling.
Things that we kind of wish we had done a little differently looking back on the surveying and method process. It took a while to create the survey. Like I said before, it was our first time creating a survey, so we ran into a few issues at first. If we had created the survey earlier and on time, we would have been able to get there at the peak time of the season. We got a little late, so that kind of skewed our data a bit. Again, I wish we had a little more time so we could have gone back and surveyed on multiple days to get a little taste of what's coming to the mountain on different days of the week. And generally just wish we had more time to collect data.
So our data and results, so the first one that we examined was where our users live. So the majority of the users at both Appalachian Ski Mountain and at Beech are from North Carolina. So it was 65% of the user population at App Ski Mountain was from North Carolina, compared to 60% from Beech. Most of the users from outside of North Carolina came from the southeast at Appalachian Ski Mountain and at Beech, but Beech had a little bit higher occurrence of visitors from outside of the state. So they had people that came from Oregon as well as Colorado that were skiing out there. Other users ranged, all over the place. We had Tennessee,
Florida.
South Carolina, Florida was a big one actually.
A lot of families from
A
Florida.
lot of families from Florida.
The second question we asked on our survey is, we asked, who do you ride with? We broke that down to family members, friends. Do you go by yourself? And this one guy even said he's there with a love interest. So this first graph pertains to App Ski Mountain. As you can see, App Ski Mountain, most people ride with family members. We had about 12 people on that survey say they ride with mainly family. When it came down to friends, 6 people answered friends. A small population, 2 go by themselves. Comparing that to the Beech Mountain data, Beech Mountain riders also said they ride with family, but more than that, they ride with friends. And as well, we had the small population saying they ride with themselves. A comparison of the two charts, like I said before, we have App Ski mainly family based. As you can see when we were collecting data, it was definitely family oriented. Everybody that we asked usually had 3 or 4 people with them, and they were always, not always, but mainly from out of state or coming with family members.
All right, the next item that we looked at was gender. So both mountains reported a higher percentage of male users compared to female users. At Appalachian Ski Mountain, it was actually 70% of participants were male and 30% were female. At Beech Mountain, it was a little bit higher, with 73% male compared to 27% female. And these numbers, surprisingly to us, were actually more in line with the national average of the demographics. It is a very large population of males that engage in skiing and snowboarding versus a very small population of females.
Next question we asked was the skill level. What skill level do you ride at? We use the national skiing skill level range, which ranges from level 1, which is you have never touched a pair of snowboards or a pair of skis, all the way to level 8, which is where you can ride off-piste, you can ride black diamonds, you can ride at speed, you can ride moguls without any danger to yourself.
Pretty much anything.
Pretty much anything. So when we're looking at app ski, which this graph shows here, more people have not picked up snowboarding than they have skiing. Most riders lie below the level 5 mark here, and as you can see, skiers and snowboarders are evenly matched here at level 5, evenly matched at level 6, and then skiers start to take over level 7, whereas level 8 snowboarders are more prevalent on App Ski's mountain. Taking a look at the Beech Mountain data, we see a different story. We see that most people have not picked up skiing compared to snowboarding. Not many people lying here between the level 2 and level 5. You have a few skiers here, a few snowboarders there. But once you get to level 6, you have a few experienced intermediate riders, a lot of skiers here at level 6. And once again, we see snowboarders taking over the upper end of the level. This is a view of the overall skill levels, and as you can see, our data shows that North Carolina is home to a lot of beginner ski levels. You have huge numbers here at level 1, and then kind of a lull between levels 2 through 5, and then a lot of people saying that they're intermediate to experienced in levels 6 through 8.
So the next thing that we looked at was the socioeconomic class of the people that were participating in activities at each of the ski mountains. So Appalachian Ski Mountain respondents identified as predominantly middle class or higher with 74%, compared to Beech Mountain's 80%. A higher percentage of upper middle class there were a higher percentage of upper middle class and upper class at App Ski Mountain than Beech, with 32% identifying as one of those two compared to 27% at Beech. That is the data for Beech. and then we have a comparison of the two. So you'll see here that there is a higher percentage at Beech of middle class versus at Appalachian Ski Mountain, but a higher percentage overall at Appalachian Ski Mountain.
One of the biggest issues that we wanted to look at was helmet usage. So here we have helmet use on the slopes between both mountains here. So 22 riders using a helmet, 13 riders not using a helmet. 19 of those helmets were owned by riders and 3 helmets were rented. This is an important piece of information to look at when reviewing the ski industry because lately head trauma has been on the rise as well as helmet use has been on the rise. We started this project by doing a review of literature, and what we found is that equipment is actually becoming so advanced that it's allowing skiers and snowboarders to outski their own abilities and get themselves into a little bit of trouble. A little review of the data of the 35 participants surveyed. 22 or 62% of the riders were using the helmets. The 19% of 19 helmets owned by riders was 86%. Of those renting equipment, only half of them were found to be using a helmet. So we think there's a little bit of an issue with people renting equipment and not wanting to wear a helmet on the slopes. When you're looking at the 21 riders who owned boards or skis, 76% of them were using a helmet, which is a much better percentage than the 50-50 of those renting equipment.
So some conclusions and recommendations. So the majority of users at both ski areas were from North Carolina. Those who did not reside in North Carolina were from the southeast. So Beech Mountain had a higher occurrence of out-of-state users than Appalachian Ski Mountain per capita. Some of the recommendations that we made for that is choosing a population to serve is an important factor in the service marketing process. So they really need to decide, do they want to be a North Carolina ski mountain or do they want to be a southeast ski mountain? We think that they should definitely continue marketing in North Carolina. That is their bread and butter. But they definitely could expand the number of users that are utilizing their facilities by advertising out of state, whether it's along billboards on the interstate or any other marketing.
Magazines, TV. Going back to who do you ride with, it's obviously from our data, it's clear that NC snowboarders and skiers visit mountains mostly with families and friends. This data correlates almost perfectly with our skill level charts to back up the idea that most of the people visiting these mountains are a little inexperienced. People that come with families and friends, mostly with families, are probably trying the sport for the first time. If you're coming with a loved one, you're probably getting her to try the sport for the first time, or him, either way. And some recommendations to capitalize off those groups visiting the mountain with families and friends. You got to target that market, get money from them. They're bringing in big groups, so you want to target that market and capitalize off that. Ski resorts could offer big group deals to attract even more customers on busy days. You could promote family event days to get a lot of families in, a lot of families from out of town, in town, and even continue to offer seasons passes in bulk deals to families. If you're offering bulk deals and seasons passes especially, you're getting them to come back to your mountain over and over again. You're going to sell more concessions to them. You're going to gain loyal customers over a certain period of time who are going to continue to buy concessions from you, and they may even buy expensive gear from you.
So, gender, males constitute a higher percentage of the user population than females, often by a margin of over 40%. This data, like we said, is consistent with other studies that have a nationwide scope. So in order to broaden the number of users at each ski area, we recommend that an increase in marketing towards women should be undertaken. Both to make skiing and snowboarding more appealing, as well as making these destinations known to each of the population. If the customer doesn't know where you are, they're not going to come. So you've got to get them to you. One way that we recommend that ski areas could go about that is to have special gender-specific events. You could have some get girls out to ski, snowboard events, get younger populations out there. They could also have all-girls competitions, whether it's in park or out on the slopes. Events like these would heavily influence female populations to visit the mountains more, because there really are some talented athletes out there who sometimes don't have the same opportunities as males.
On the skill level, it's definitely clear from our data that most of the people visiting North Carolina lie a little below that level 4 or 5 zone. They're definitely beginner skiers. As you saw on the graph, that level 1 spike was way up. So obviously, the beginner skiers represent our home population here. A basic conclusion can be made from that data that beginner populations make up an extensive portion of the North Carolina ski industry. Local North Carolina mountains should probably accommodate for those beginners, even though there is still a prevalent population of intermediate to expert riders. If mountains only had runs that catered to the intermediate and expert riders, there would be nothing for beginner skiers and people wanting to get into the sport to learn and improve on. Also going to injure themselves on those harder slopes. A few recommendations for those problems are that ski resorts could have plenty of ski school options to get people into the sport safely. Mountains should definitely make it clear to beginners how the rating system works, blue diamonds, greens, reds, blacks, as well as the park. They should make that clear how that works to avoid confusion or injury on a run that was intended for a more experienced rider. Also, a huge problem that I have with ski resorts, whether it be here in North Carolina or out west, I always find crappy equipment. I find rental equipment that is unkept, equipment that is unserviced, and that is not what a beginner should be riding on. A beginner needs equipment that allows them to gain experience and not equipment that hinders their learning.
So some recommendations that we had about socioeconomic class issues at each of the mountains. Really, it boils down to skiing and snowboarding are becoming increasingly expensive sports to engage in. The cost of equipment, lift tickets, and other associated costs have skyrocketed in the past few, really the last decade, but it has been in a really steep increase for a long time now. So, according to a study by the Snow Sport Industries of America in 2013, 54% of snow sport participants nationwide came from households with annual incomes of at least $75,000, firmly putting them in an upper middle class socioeconomic category. So men also constitute a majority of participants. So really there are two possible courses of action that ski areas, especially in North Carolina, can take. They can either market to a educated, upper middle class male and their families, and so they could raise their prices, which would decrease the number of users that were able to use their facilities. It would decrease crowding, which would entice a lot more people of those socioeconomic means to come in. But it could cause drastic issues down the road from the lack of volume. They could price themselves out of the market. The second course of action that we personally believe would be a little bit more effective would to have opportunities for lower income individuals to engage in those sports. It doesn't necessarily have to be an across the board price drop, but have days that individuals from the surrounding areas, maybe from further away, can come up and ski and snowboard for a little bit less money. That's going to get more people involved in the sports, and that increase in volume would make up for any income loss that the companies experienced.
Back to that issue on helmet use on the slopes. Helmet use has been increasing dramatically on the slopes. However, helmet trauma is still on the rise. We were surprised within our data to see 62% or higher of users reporting wearing a helmet on the slopes. It was nice to see that North Carolina was doing a good job at staying safe on the mountain. Of those, 86% own their own helmet. This indicates that people who rent equipment may be a little wary of buying a helmet. Maybe they don't want to wear a helmet, maybe they think it's lame, maybe they don't want to shell out a little extra cash for the helmet because they're buying boards, skis, boots, everything else that they need. But we believe that it's important for ski mountains to maybe post statistics, post awareness around their facility on the importance of helmet use to both experienced and inexperienced riders. Many of those users who are renting equipment were probably of lower skill levels, which would make them more likely to need protection on the slope. These issues arise from having fewer people rent helmets can be mitigated by simply making helmets rental free. We suggest possibly making them mandatory. I mean, skate parks do it all the time. If you are not wearing a helmet at the skate park, you get kicked out. They will not let you ride. So why does this have to be any different for skiing? Skiing and snowboarding can be easily a more dangerous sport than skateboarding is. If not making them free, if not making them mandatory, why not put them into a rental deal? If most of the people not wearing helmets are those renting equipment, why not make it a deal, a bundle deal?
Rent
So
some
that you,
skis,
yeah,
rent the boots, get a helmet with it.
yeah, that would be awesome. It would lower the price and it wouldn't be totally free.
Right, so basically the purpose of this study was for us to get some demographics for the ski areas in North Carolina, both for professional, because we're both looking at the possibility of going into the ski industry, kind of getting an idea of what kind of people are engaging in these sports in Northwestern North Carolina. Also for the personal aspect of it, it's kind of always a question that was in both of our minds, making sure, or really wanting to know, in the great debate of skiing versus snowboarding, who's, got more people right now? Is there any shift in the demographics of that group occurring? Or, yeah.
Mainly we just had a great time evaluating a subject that we're both really passionate about. It was our first evaluative study, and I think things went well. Some things didn't go as well. Like we said at the beginning, kind of wish that we would have had a little more time to do our study. I think it could have been a really great study if we could have gotten a really good number of participants that have actually learned some important things that may have been useful in the future for those mountains. But overall, I think it was a really fun study to do, and we had a great time doing it.